Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome. It is a Friday edition here, Roto Grinders Daily Fantasy Fix Podcast. We are presented to you by our friends at FanDuel once again, and what a week it's been over there at FanDuel, and it continues today with NBA. Another $1 million tournament. They're putting $200K up top. It's called the Jumbo Monster. 2,800 spots, $400 will get you into that one. And, man, just another big week here over on FanDuel. Tons of tournaments for you. The shot back at 375, so NBA continues to scale incredibly this January. I am, of course, Dan Bach, and joining me this Friday, we've got Mike Hoop2410 Peta, and Big T still not here. Now, normally this is the part of the show, Hoop, where we make fun of Big T and be like, oh, he's sleeping in again. Beauty rest. I don't think we can quite do that today, can we?
No, we're going to have to give him the free pass today. Sounds like, might be child number 3 on the way for Big T. His wife potentially going into labor. I don't know. He sent kind of a cryptic email last night that didn't provide many details. But if you're an avid follower of Big T, you know that's his style. So see if we can get some more information maybe later today on the old Afternoon Delight show. We could have some more information, potentially some pics of this baby. Yeah,
it's okay to miss a show or a podcast if your wife is in labor. We are definitely going to allow that one. Good luck to him and Mrs. Big T out there as they're welcoming, hopefully, their third child here fairly soon. Now, let's do some real talk here, Hoop. You and I, same boat, 2 kids already. When that moment comes, do you peek behind the curtain or do you not peek behind the curtain?
Like when it's time to go?
Yeah, when it's go time. Time.
Yeah, I was I was right in there both times. I was right in the battlefield.
We're in the battlefield. See, both of my kids were they had to go in and get them. They had to go the old C-section route. So
see, I don't know if I would probably be behind the curtain for that one. Absolutely.
Okay, because that was a situation where there's things that you see there that you can't unsee. Yes. And I was not interested in that. And I'm kind of got a little queasy stomach anyway. So behind the curtain, looking at my wife saying, don't look at the mirror, don't look at the mirror. Whatever you do, don't look at the mirror. Just wait for there's nurse. They'll get the baby. You don't have to do anything. And I was like, okay, I've just refused because I don't think it would have gone well. I think I would have been one of those passed out dads. So, no, some people are like, oh, it's the joy of birth. No, I don't need to see my, wife get cut up like, a salmon or something. I don't need that. That's not something that I'm into. So, I was behind the curtain and did not peek. So,
yeah, that's the best way to put it, though. It's like you're going to see things there that you can't forget. And it's things that you're definitely gonna want to forget. So if it was the C-section route, I can totally see not being front and center for that one.
Yeah. So there you go. There's your real talk from Dad Life here today on the Daily Fantasy Fix podcast. We've got a nice NBA slate we're going to get to as well. Let's just quickly, though, because we were chatting a little bit before the show, touch up on NFL this weekend, because the one thing that I have noticed I played over the years, when you have smaller slates, the pricing is that much more important, because if you miss on one spot, it can just lead to an obvious roster build. And then, cash games become borderline worthless. A lot of times if chalk hits in tournaments, you're going to have, 50 to 100 identical lineups potentially winning or sharing a top prize. But let's give credit where credit is due here, Hoop, because we like getting on the sites a little bit when things don't go right. It went right this week in terms of their salary algorithms. I think they both nailed it.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of times, like you said, we get to these wild card weekends. The pricing's pretty soft. There's some obvious plays, some obvious values that just open up everything. And then you get in a situation where everyone's kind of playing the same lineups. And it's not the case this week. And I think it's for a couple of reasons. One, like you said, they did good with the pricing. Kudos to the sites for being on top of it. And two, you have a position like tight end where it's just a disaster all around. And there's nothing that really stands out. For GPPs, obviously, I think ownership's going to be spread out big time at that position. In cash games, there's not like a go-to safe type option. So the combination of the pricing and even defense too, defense is wide open. I mean, there's not like a defense you have to have. I mean, there's probably five or six viable offense or defenses, and they all project pretty similarly. So should be a good weekend for tournaments. Ownership should be spread out. And the one guy I think that'll be high owned across the board will be Le'Veon Bell, but rightfully so.
But at least they make you pay for him. Exactly. I mean, it's the highest price I think there's ever been for a running back on FanDuel and DraftKings this week. Yeah. And that's the way it should be. And it's like, okay, if you want him, then, you're not getting two highfalutin wide receivers. It's not going to work that way. So I think it's a great dynamic this week because you also have, a guy like Connor Cook who's, relative unknown, mega cheap, certainly on DraftKings, I think $5K over there. And, it's just going to lead to a fun weekend of GPP builds and even cash game builds, which is not always the case on 4-game slates. So let's give those guys credit. Real quick at QB, you lean in one way or another. I think the other thing I've noticed too is the sites, they're a little bit different too in the builds. Like it's funny. It's like they're both priced well, but they're also both priced very differently. Some of the value on FanDuel or underpriced guys on FanDuel are very different than the underpriced guys on DraftKings. So it's not like they just mimic the salary algorithms. They're both equally hard, but in different ways. So what are you thinking at QB here real quick?
Yeah, so I mean, the two guys that stand out would be Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers is the better option. I think he'll have more fantasy points when it's all said and done. But when you look at the pricing on both sites, I think it's around $800 or $900 difference. You can save that much if you drop down to a guy like Russell Wilson. On a full slate, I think you find the money and you just get up to Aaron Rodgers. On this slate where it's actually pretty tough and the pricing is relatively strict, that $800-900 can go a long way. So you can definitely make the case. We know all the injuries at this point. It's not like anything's going to open up where it's going to make it easier to pay up for Aaron Rodgers. But at this point, I think the guy is probably Russell Wilson because that money can go a lot longer. And like we were talking before, Giants defense has actually been pretty good, and their corners have been solid basically all around. So they might be able to slow the Packers down a little bit. I could see that being a nasty game. So as it stands now, probably a guy like Russell Wilson for me.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning that way too. I think initially I kind of wanted to go the route of, Big Ben at home is always pretty much lock and load. But the more I've been looking at it, the savings, especially on FanDuel in particular, you get on Russell Wilson feels like that's the better route to go. And again, when you're playing tournaments, there's correlation to be had in a lot of things. But in cash games, I think the savings is significant enough. And the simple fact that you've got a Seattle team that just can't run the football. I mean, Thomas Rawls has arguably been the worst starting running back this season. If you took out that one game against Carolina where he went absolutely ham, and remember, that was a short week, long travel for Seattle that week.
After he busted the week before.
Yeah, and he busted every other week. I mean, he's been awful every single week. I mean, that's why Alex Collins got carries last week. I just don't think they have a choice but to throw the football. And like you said, I mean, the Giants, let's ask ourselves, who's the best defense, overall defense in this round of the playoffs that's playing tomorrow or on Saturday and Sunday?
Yeah, it's probably the Giants, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Seattle's nice, but they also allowed how many points to Carson Palmer at home not that long ago?
It's not the same defense we've seen in the past from the Seahawks. So, yeah, it is. It probably is the Giants. And Thomas, another thing with Wilson, I think there's some running upside this week too. The knee brace, they said, is coming off for like the first time this season, which indicates fully healthy. And, obviously in the playoffs, they're not going to hold anything back. So if they need some yards on the ground, I just don't think they're going to shy away from using Russell Wilson in that manner.
Yeah, and he's and I love Jimmy Graham against freaking that Detroit middle of the field, which is so bad. So I don't know. I'm kind of siding more with Russell Wilson here. Obviously, we've got Le'Veon Bell. Cash games, you pretty much are going to play him. Tournaments, still think I'm probably going to play him. The other running back is interesting. There's so many different ways you can go. I mean, Ajayi in the same matchup went for 200 yards earlier this year. But given that was a little bit different situation, they're 10-point dogs on the road. Pouncey is out. Kind of a stretch to likely go there this week and pay the salary that he has. But it's like, where else are you going? You've got Lamar Miller, who has been injured the last 2 weeks, still has Brock Osweiler under center, the lowest total we've seen in a playoff game since Tebow was quarterback. So you don't get excited about that one. Zenner's been on the field a ton, done all right, but tough matchup on the road here in a game which could fall out of script. And then, I threw the name out before. I'm like, is this like, can we consider like a Paul Perkins maybe? I mean, I've read a couple of places and talked to some people who are interested in Rashad Jennings. I just think Perkins is the better back. I mean, he's younger, and Jennings has been in the league a while. He's had a chance to prove himself, and I guess in playoff time he might take the veteran. But I mean, they played last game like it mattered. He got 21 carries. Yeah, I like the savings on Perkins a little bit here.
Yeah, so you're not going to feel very comfortable with your running back two, probably regardless of where you go. It's just not going to be a comfortable feeling. If I'm deciding on the Giants, guys, I'm with you. It's Perkins. Everything's trending in his direction. The carries are trending in his direction. The production's going in his direction. And this talk out of New York is going in his direction that, this is kind of going to be their guy. And this is, what they foresaw happening. The carries kind of transitioning to him. So, if deciding between those guys, it's going to be him. And the interesting spot for me is the Lamar Miller thing, because he's been out a couple weeks, had the injury. They're claiming that he's healthy and ready to go. And when he was healthy in the regular season, he was kind of like a workhorse back, and that's what we want. He's performed better at home. And when they're a favorite, I mean, they're only a small favorite here, 3.5 or 4 points. But as it stands now, I probably think he's the safest. But you look at a guy like Zenner that's getting all the work. The matchup sucks, but I mean, he's getting all the work. He's getting the carries. He's getting the work out of the backfield, and he provides a nice discount from a guy like Miller. So, just to go back to what I said in the opening, you're just not going to feel comfortable with your RB2. You're going to be taking a chance, and for tournaments, it's probably great because if I'm building a lot of teams, I'm sprinkling in all those guys with Le'Veon Bell, and hoping you hit the right combination.
And then at wide receiver, let's get here real quick. Which of the Seattle guys do you like best? I mean, we've got obviously Baldwin, but he's priced up a little bit higher. And then you've got Richardson, and then you've got Curse. What's your feeling on that wide receiving core? Because there feels like there's value there, but just want to get your take on which one you think you like best as of Friday here.
Yeah, for like cash games, in terms of the cheap guys there, I want the guy that's going to be on the field the most, and that appears that it's probably Curse. So I think he's probably the safest. But once again, it's not a very safe feeling. And the way the builds are going, you're going to be taking a chance probably on at least one of your wide receivers in basically all formats, unless you go the route of cheap at quarterback, which in cash games most people won't. So yeah, a guy like Curse, I mean, he has seen some targets in the last couple of weeks. So for those Seattle guys, it's probably him for me.
He's all those guys are. It's just a fun week. It's just a fun week. It's not coming together easy. That is for sure. Yeah. Is it Brown over Beckham for you this week?
Yeah, it's a tough decision. I'm always a Antonio Brown guy, but you look at the situations that the teams could potentially be in. The Steelers' big favorites, obviously here, 10 points, biggest on the slate. But the Steelers' offense, specifically Ben and Antonio Brown, perform much better at home. So for me, I'm still going to lean Antonio Brown. That could be a big mistake because, the way you beat the Packers is through the air. Their cornerbacks are not very good. It could be playing from behind here, potentially. The spread's not massive, but could be playing from behind, which would lead to a lot of targets for a guy like Odell Beckham. So I'm going to lean Brown, but, I mean, honestly, I think it could be a big mistake.
Yeah, it's not a lot of clarity here. I know people like hot takes but there's not. I don't think you can feel that much confident in one over the other.
No.
In this week. I mean, everything is just priced so tight. I mean, Jordy is the one guy on DraftKings who is well under on the pricing of those two guys. But like we've talked about, Jordy Nelson last week wasn't particularly great. He's been awesome before then. I don't think we necessarily can look at last week and bail on him. But it also goes back to, you're in a matchup against probably the best defense in my eyes out there on the slate in Giants. Do you want to pay up for a marquee guy there? I mean, I think I'm okay doing that. Obviously, if you're not taking Rodgers, you're not going to put – I'll tell you right now, if you're playing cash games, don't put Rodgers and Jordy together. There's no need to do that. That's way too much risk against that defense. If you want to get exposure to one, fine. But I don't think I get one and the other. I don't think that's necessary. DraftKings in particular – you've got some underpriced wide receivers. Even Devontae Adams isn't that expensive. We talked about how you've got Jarvis Landry and Amari Cooper basically sitting there right in that middle tier, 51, 5,200. I mean, I can't believe Amari Cooper's 5,200.
Yeah,
he was like a $7,500 receiver all year long, and here we go, 5,200.
Yeah, it seems dirty, and that's, I guess, what happens when you basically suck for 6 straight weeks, and then you get a quarterback in there named Connor Cook. Your price just completely plummets. But the one thing to note is when Cook came in that game, he targeted Cooper very frequently. I think 6 targets in limited time. So something to keep an eye on. If he's going to get that amount of targets, he's probably underpriced, even with the quarterback being Connor Cook. So it's really interesting. And then the Jordy Nelson thing, I like the price. I like what they did with Jordy Nelson. You're getting the discount dropping down to Jordy Nelson from those top guys, but he by far has the worst matchup out of any of the elite wide receivers. He's been, arguably one of the best receivers in football for 6-7 weeks, but he gets a tough matchup, and the price, it's tempting you a little bit if you're planning on paying up. You look at those top guys and you get more than $1,000 less, you can have Jordy. So it's a very interesting slate. Like you said, it's hard to take bold, hard stances and take have hot takes on this slate because it's wide open and it makes it fun for the weekend. Yeah, it's going to be a great weekend of NFL. And again, I'm usually in the camp of scaling back. And I still might scale back just because it feels so hard. But normally I'm just not even that interested because I just feel like I don't want to play 2v2 cash games, and we're not going to have that. We are not going to have that, I believe, this week, which is great. So credit to FanDuel and DraftKings. Great job on their salaries this week. All right, let's get into NBA for tonight, Hoop. And again, the Jumbo Monster on FanDuel, $1 million. Man, they are really just amping it up here. Yeah. And to them, they even overlaid some games yesterday. I don't think they overlaid their big ones, but they overlaid a few games yesterday. So definitely, if you don't have our rate calculator, it's a plugin in the Chrome store. It goes right into your browser, and it'll let you know exactly, how much overlay. We call it margin, or that's the rake. Excuse me. Margin is the rake, but then we have overlay right there that'll tell you what percentage we have, and some good value at the buzzer yesterday. So certainly check that out if you haven't had it. But the $1 million Jumbo Monster, $200,000 to first place. So a lot of people winning money here, NBA this week on FanDuel. Also, the World Fantasy Basketball Qualifier. I did see Mr. Hoop 2410 in the 500 yesterday. Was that a purposeful entry, or was this just clicking the enter all button and not realizing what you entered there? Hoop? No, it was on purpose. Probably not the wisest decision because I don't know, those cues can be dangerous, but yeah, your buddy Hoop likes dabbling a little bit, so we'll see. We'll see how hard I actually go for it, but yeah, it was a purposeful entry there. But it definitely fits the kind of Hoop style of tournament there. I think it was a max entry of like $60 or 60 entries, so not a huge field, like kind of similar to your 1Ks that Tony always brags about you taking down there. So yeah, it's funny. Did you see how early that thing filled yesterday? Yeah, no, it filled like by 1 o'clock or something. Yeah, I think earlier than that. I mean, it's just the popularity of NBA is simply amazing, and it's awesome that they're going for it essentially with these tournaments, just rolling out these big tournaments, and the big ones continue to fill. It's like when you look at it and you think they're pushing the envelope a little bit, it gets there and fills like way early. So it's awesome. Yeah, and DraftKings tonight, by the way, a little bit higher on the buy-in, $1,500, but $1.25 million box out, $250K
go into first place. So 925, the total number of entrants there. So between two tournaments, $2.25 million between FanDuel and DraftKings.
Amazing stuff.
Amazing stuff. Amazing. Great time to be live. And again, those are my maybe higher buy-ins this week, but there's plenty of low-dollar games out there too. And the one thing you can't say, a lot of nice satellites for these tournaments as well. Today for the World Fantasy Football or Basketball Championship, again, I mean, for a guy like you who's in Michigan, like coming down to Miami in March probably sounds pretty freaking appealing. Like regardless of what the payout is, get away from the cold in March.
Yeah, tons of value in that trip for a guy like me stuck in Michigan right now. It was 15 yesterday with wind chills, in the single digits. Tough life up here in Michigan, I'll tell you that much. So yeah, a trip down to Miami in March adds a whole lot of value. Yes.
Now, my hope on these tournaments too, by the way, especially at the higher dollar buy-ins like we had yesterday, 500. Today it's 300. If these things do fill so early, okay, FanDuel, I hope you're listening. I hope the suits listen to me, okay? They should listen to this show by now. I've been doing it 5 years. I know what the hell I'm talking about. So here we go. Plan for you. If things are filling by noon, 1 o'clock, like it did yesterday, 2 o'clock, make them bigger. Now, here's the catch. I know a lot of people are like, well, Dan, they've already have the prize pool. They can't just necessarily make the prize pool bigger. But what I would love to see is have legit payouts 2 through 10 in those queues. Now, I understand in football they took a bath, and towards the end it got to winner take all, which was like a $70,000 seat or $50,000 seat, whatever it was, even $30,000 seat, and then second place, gets a big middle finger, you get nothing. That sucks, okay? But understood they were overlaying contests left and right. They probably overshot that tournament, and they took a bath, and it was a way for them to have smaller fields and potentially fill it. So I understood where they were coming from. Yeah. But in NBA, if you're filling these 500 buy-ins, $500, $300 buy-ins for these queues, let's just beef up the rest of the payouts below it. Almost make it like a GPP with, oh, by the way, you get a World Fantasy Football Championship or Basketball Championship Q ticket to go along with it. Yeah. That's what they need to do. Now, I'm not going to lie. I do like smaller fields. I think it makes it easier to attain. But if you have a $500 buy-in with a 100-man field instead of 65, but the payouts are either deeper or they're better for the people who finish second through 10th, I think everybody would be fine with that.
Yeah, and then I was going to say that, or I know a lot of times they like doing those mega queues towards the end to fill a lot of seats. How about some mega queues early on when people are amped up and ready to go, where 1 through 5 or 1 through 10 gets a seat, because a lot of people start sinking money in, or they're getting their seats and then they stop playing at the end, and that's when these sites are kind of rushing to get the seats filled. So maybe some mega queues early on opposed to later.
Yeah, it's weird. The way Q season works, I know people are like, you're dragging on, get to slate. We'll get to it. The way Q season works is everybody gets excited in the beginning. Then you have a lull for, in the middle. Yep. And then everybody gets excited at the end and says, oh, crap, I got to get my seat. I don't have one yet. Mm-hmm. And that was basically what happened with FanDuel last year is, for basketball or for football, especially like the end of football season, they were filling all their qualifiers. All of them. They were filling. They just didn't save enough at the very end. But all right, let's get to NBA tonight. And looking at, again, we'll use FanDuel salaries for reference. Again, if you're not using our projections page, one really nice feature is the FD versus DK. And you can basically sort very simply to see who are the guys who are most, where's the biggest salary difference between the two sites. For example, today, you've got on DraftKings, the guys who are most expensive on DraftKings versus FanDuel are Isaiah Thomas at a $900 difference, Kyrie at $800, Trey Burke at $500, Beverly at $500. Those are, the more significant names out there. But Isaiah Thomas, it's a perfect example, Hoop, of a situation where he's such a greater value on FanDuel that, it makes it obvious what site you want to be playing him on. Not saying he's unplayable in DraftKings. Honestly, at 9,200, I think he is. But it just shows you how much of a better value he is on FanDuel. And I think it's, part of our projections page that people overlook or maybe not understand.
Yeah, and a lot of times people just look at the guys and say, all right, I want to play this guy. I don't really care what the price is. And, talking, $400, $500, $600 in salary might not seem like a big difference, but site to site, it can be a massive difference. So it's an awesome tool to look at every day. It's something I use, and I think everyone should.
Yeah, and then one guy, let's get to point guard, and the guy who stands out today, and initially it was TJ McConnell, but it looks like Sergio Rodriguez is going to return today, which is unfortunate because FanDuel refuses to bump McConnell's salary. Yeah. He is at $4,100, but honestly, for strictly gameplay, it's probably better off to have Rodriguez playing because McConnell at that sort of salary would have been garnered just heavy ownership. But I think that's going to fall now on the shoulders of Malcolm Brogdon. Again, on DraftKings, he's up to $5,700, where you got to think about it. $4,600 on FanDuel, as long as Dellavedova is out, which as far as I know he is going to be, it's hard not to plug him in getting 35 minutes because he's just been really, really productive when he's on the floor that amount of time.
Yeah, and they want him out there, and he has a lot of ball handling responsibility. So, yeah, it's just a piece of news to monitor. Dellavedova's out, fire up Brogdon. I mean, that's just still way too cheap. He's playing mid-30s in terms of minutes, and they've pushed him close to 40 over the course of the last week too. So, assuming Dellavedova's out, that's just way too cheap on FanDuel.
And I think he's the one who's likely to be out because some of the injury situations we had are a little bit changed. Again, Rodriguez back. Chris Paul is expected to play today. So Raymond Felton, Austin Rivers, those guys, interest in them is certainly going to wane a good bit. So, it's a different outlook here at point guard. We can start at kind of the high end here today. And, you've got John Wall at the top at 9,700 in a game against Minnesota. IT2 at 9,200 here on FanDuel as well against Philadelphia. And Chris Paul at 9,100. Kyrie gets a great matchup versus Brooklyn. We're just not really sure what his status is going to be today. Let's talk about those guys. Paul is the one guy who, gosh, if I had a crystal ball to know he was going to play 32, 33 minutes at 9,100 against Sacramento, I might have some interest in him on the road just because you got to remember this is a guy who gets a nice usage bump when we take Blake Griffin off the court. And he hasn't played that many games with Blake off the court because he got hurt soon thereafter. And 9,100 just feels a little bit cheap for him on FanDuel. What's your take on that situation?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of got to monitor the news throughout the day because is he going to play or officially questionable or what's the exact status? Because that's kind of important.
I Googled or I Twittered it up a little bit earlier, and I think it says is expected to play today.
Yeah, so it's like, and the Clippers are one of the. I mean, the injury news has been a lot better this year. I mean, it's been, I'd say, pretty on point. But the Clippers are the one team that are pretty hesitant to give us the full information, and they've done it for a couple years now, so it's not surprising. But as it stands now, I'd probably just like in tournaments take a shot on him unless we get some definitive news throughout the day. If we get definitive news that he's coming back full go, 9.1K on the road against Sacramento, which would probably be a competitive game if he does play, is a price tag that I'd be very interested in. But like I said, just need more information on that situation.
Yeah. It's also, I think T said the other day on one of the shows about Kyrie, it's like you're not going to bring him back unless he's, ready to go.
Yeah.
Like,
the Cavs have literally like no incentive to push any of their guys. There's just nobody in the East that's going to come close to pushing them. So they're going to be super cautious with a guy like Kyrie. So and plus the price came way up too, 8.6K here. That's pretty high. So probably just a fade situation for me.
Definitely. All right. Curry at 8,100 against Golden State. This game total checks in. Let's see. I think it was like 216. So it's not terribly low. Yeah. I think when you get game totals under 210 and Golden State's involved, then you worry a little bit. But 216 isn't terrible. But this game is at home. Certainly some blowout potential. Curry, he kind of is priced now at this point where he gets us 40 fantasy points,
Yeah,
we'll take it. And
yeah.
we know we can get 40. Probably not getting you 50 anymore, but 40 seems pretty doable.
Yeah, I mean, the upside is a little more limited, I'd say, with Curry nowadays, with Kevin Durant there and a more, I guess, balanced team. And, I know it frustrates a lot of people, but this is a guy we were paying like $10K for last season. Now, like you said, he's down to $8K. If he gets you, for cash games at $8K, if he gets you like 37, 38, you're fine and you're going to move on. And, it's weird to transition from what we expected out of him last season, where the guy was just going ham and 50, 60 fantasy point games were the norm. Well, now we're looking for 40 from him, and then I think even in tough matchups he can get 40. So I know a lot of people are really low on Curry because a lot of people are struggling in their head to say, okay, this is a guy that was getting 60 fantasy points last season, now 46, 47 appears to be the ceiling. So I'm fine with him. I mean, I don't think it's a guy I'm building around today, but if I get a nice lineup and some value opens up and he's a guy that I can slot in there at point guard, I'd be fine with it.
Yeah, it looks like 4 out of his last 7 games, he's reached 40 fantasy points or more, right in 39.6. So we'll call it 40 or more in 4 of 7. It's just, I mean, I'll take it. Like you say, I think he's a cash game play almost more than a tournament play.
Yeah.
Maybe not a building block because we've got Brogdon in there, and he's a guy who I think most people are going to plug in cash here today. But definitely a guy I'm very, very interested in. Despite the matchup, Memphis, Conley's a good defender, but Golden State just plays at a ridiculous pace. So I'm not really worried about that. Yeah. Moving down, Dragic gets the Lakers. It's a plum matchup, but that team is starting to get a little bit more healthy. And, 2 games ago when they were down to like 7 players, he had 40. Last game against Sacramento, people got healthy, only played 30 minutes, and gave you 32. It's not terrible at 71, but not a plug and play for me.
No, I think a safe option. He ran into a little bit of foul trouble in that game, so I think that limited the minutes a little bit. Dion Waiters came back, only played like 10 minutes. I think we can kind of expect the same tonight, so I don't think Waiters coming back really affects him too much. So, I mean, at 7.1K, he's I think a safe option. I think like a floor of around 30 is reasonable for him tonight, assuming no injury or foul trouble. So. Safe option, just a safe guy, I think.
Give me some other point guards. Anybody else you're looking at strongly here today?
I think Elfrid Payton is interesting. Back to the starting rotation there. The matchup, not great individually versus Patrick Beverley, but it was back-to-back game for Houston. I think Orlando is competitive in this game, and he's 6.3K, and I'm willing to overlook that difficult matchup when you see the minutes, 31, 35 minutes in the last 2 games. So he's a guy in that mid-tier that I'm interested in. You come down, like you said, Brogdon is should be a popular option, assuming Dellavedova's out. Darren Collison's 4.4K, kind of coming off a stinker. Ty Lawson is back, but I think playing time in the upper 20s is reasonable. 4.4K, we're looking for 22 fantasy points. So, I guess those are kind of the guys I'm looking at.
Yeah, I don't hate D'Angelo Russell. Did you bring him up?
I didn't mention him, but no, I don't mind him.
Yeah, 6,300. It seems like Luke Walton's willing to give these guys a little bit few more minutes. I mean, remember when he wasn't getting 30 at all, and now he's 35, 33, 31, 31 in each of his last 4, and has been at no less than 30 fantasy points in a matchup. So now this is looks like a 3rd game in 4 nights situation for the Lakers against Miami. That does concern me a little bit. They might scale back the minutes a tad, but he's a guy I think we can at least put on our radar for tournaments here today. I think we got to get off of Darren Collison again. Ty Lawson coming back really cut into his production, so I'm pretty much out on him today. Just can't do it. It seems there seems to be a direct correlation between those guys. Do you have interest in Wall or Thomas? I mean, Thomas gets Philadelphia and has been awesome, and then Wall against Minnesota. Do you want to pay up for those guys at all, or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, point guard's an interesting position. There's just a lot of guys that I expect to get around the value range. I just don't think there's a lot of standout value outside of like a guy like Brogdon. So it's going to come down to kind of what we do at the other positions. I can see myself kind of coming back for PG2 and kind of seeing what I have left, because there's a lot of guys I feel comfortable with, like Wall, Dragic, D'Angelo Russell, like you said. Even Peyton. So it's a position I'm probably going to fill last as it stands now, unless, something breaks throughout the day. As it stands now, kind of waiting on PG2.
All right, shooting guard here. Last night it was Sean Kilpatrick's birthday, and he didn't let people down. And honestly, I kind of liked him at first. Then news came out that he wasn't starting. Yeah. That probably shouldn't have been a reason to take me off of him entirely. And I didn't jump off the boat entirely on him, but kind of took him out of my main lineup, and somewhat regrets. I think I missed in a few other spots, so it wouldn't have mattered. But back-to-back here against Cleveland, we've seen the pace they play at, but they're in like a 6-game and 9-night situation. They've already said we are going to monitor minutes here. I think it makes it really dangerous to pay for guys. Now, Kilpatrick at 4.7 isn't paying up. Joe Harris, who drew the start last game and kind of got there when it was all said and done, isn't paying up. We'll get to Brook Lopez and those guys. I don't think you can pay up for anybody here for Brooklyn, but can Kilpatrick do it back-to-back games here? And I probably think he's going to be popular after what he did last night. What do you think?
Yeah, he's the one guy in Brooklyn that I might kind of trust. They have openly talked about divvying up these minutes pretty evenly, and that's kind of what we've seen. But he's a guy, 4.7K. He can get it done as long as he gets upper 20s in terms of playing time. And I think that's a reasonable expectation. We've seen 28, 25 in the last 2 games. 4.7K. We're looking for 23, 24 fantasy points. So I do like him. Fine going there. I like JJ Redick too. I hope Chris Paul plays. I like Redick better if Paul plays, and Blake is out, obviously. So I think that's a good boost. And he needs someone that can get him the ball. And if Paul is out there, he can obviously get him the open look. So I like Redick in that price range too. But we got the big guys at the top, Harden and Antetokounmpo, and obviously 2 super safe options. I think a lot of people will pay up for one and probably pay down at the other spot. I think that will be the popular combination, but you have to like both those guys up there.
Yeah, I mean, Giannis, after hitting the game winner against the Knicks last game, is just a superstar. Love watching the guy play. Harden last night. That was a tough game for them. I mean, Houston, they definitely came to play against Oklahoma City, with it being an ESPN game and Russell Westbrook there. I'm a little bit weary on the 11.8 on him. I feel like the $1,100 difference from Antetokounmpo to him is probably worth saving today. That line in that Houston game, I mean, the one thing you can say is it might make the game a bit more stackable, because Houston's only favored by 6 here. At home against they are on the road, but against an Orlando team that's really not very good. But probably the highest total I think we'll see on the board today at 223. So I think he's definitely in any sort of game stacks I have, which I'll probably have a few if I'm multi-entering today. But I do think it's Giannis at home against New York. And let's not sleep on Bradley Beal here. Minnesota is really bad at defending the three-point line, and that's what Bradley Beal does really well. 7K is not the price tag we prefer on Beal. I think we all love him when he's in the 6s, but he's at 7 because he's been at 35 fantasy points or more in 3 of his last 4 games he's played in. So I think we got to consider him a little bit.
You don't have to convince me on Beal. I'm a Beal lover, and 7K. It's a good matchup here. I mean, the Timberwolves they're a bad team. I mean, they have all the names, but the team overall is bad. The defense is bad. I think this is a game where Beal can get loose, and I like that call at 7K a lot.
Beal over Levine, you agree?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
The
Timberwolves guys. I mean, they have to figure out something with their roster, because it just doesn't work. I feel like having a guy like Levine and Wiggins together, I just think that's just a terrible, terrible combination in terms of winning basketball games.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about a few of the cheaper options. It feels like Avery Bradley's priced down a little bit here at 6.2. I don't hate the matchup here against Philadelphia. No, I mean, clearly it's been the Isaiah Thomas show, but, last game, you throw that one out. He was 30 against Cleveland, 42 against Memphis, and then didn't kill your lineups, but 26 against the Knicks before then. I don't think I think he's priced fairly at 6,200 in that middle tier. So I'm all right with him. Not in love with it, but I'd consider him.
Yeah, fine option, like a last lineup spot type guy, not building around him. If I end on him, I'm good with it.
How about Aaron Aflalo as a mega punt play? If you're stars and scrubbing it up tonight, 3,700, 31 minutes in each of the last two games. Actually started the second half this past game. What do we think of him? Very, very cheap out there. I think, let's see, on DraftKings, he was a true 3K crapper. He's up to 3,100 over on DK. But, hey, you love those guys who potentially could start at 3,100.
Yeah, I think we need, as long as Rudy Gay's out, I'm fine. Yeah, fine with a guy like him.
All right, and I think we got to keep our eye on, again, the Cleveland news here against Brooklyn. If Jordan McRae starts, he played all right this last game. He's 3.8K on FanDuel today. Yeah. Now, obviously, you had no Love as well, which was, allowed more usage to go, his way, and he didn't let us down. 29 fantasy points at 3.9K, and he was a stud in the preseason. And honestly, I watched a lot of that game, and he looks good. Like, he looks like an NBA caliber player. Liggins, on the other hand, I can't necessarily say that. I don't think he's very good at all. But McRae, he's cheap. He's I think in play if Kyrie sits.
Yeah, and it just came across here. It looks like Love and Kyrie expected to play tonight, so that definitely takes down a guy like McRae, but he still will start. I mean, he's going to start, and he's showing he can produce. Obviously, much better play if a guy like Kyrie's out, though. But like I said, it looks like he's expected to play tonight, so it kind of takes him out of play a little bit.
Do you play Kyrie at all against Brooklyn here if he plays here today? I mean, I know the prices are up, but, man, we saw what Jeff Teague did to him yesterday.
Yeah, and just probably tournaments. I mean, if I'm building a lot of tournament teams, I'd definitely get him in a couple spots.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could be a blowout situation too. Cleveland could just massacre them. Yeah. All right, it looks like Porzingis is going to play, and just in time for Kevin Love's salary to kind of come up a little bit, or excuse me, Carmelo Anthony's salary to come up a little bit. So 7-9, probably going to be a competitive game. We saw it last time these guys played, came down to the very end. I mean, it's still not a killer salary here on FanDuel and DraftKings. Same number at 7-9.
Yeah.
But, Porzingis, we saw, he commands a lot of usage in that offense. Probably not going to play Carmelo.
Yeah, I mean, Carmelo goes from a building block with Porzingis out, a guy that you're probably one of the first few guys you put in your lineups, to a guy that's probably more for tournaments, I'd say, just because, I mean, they take so much usage away from each other, and it's a situation to keep an eye on moving forward for the remainder of the season. Just know when one of those guys are out, it's, you're going to want to play the other dude. If Melo's out, Porzingis, you're going to want to get in there. Porzingis out, you're going to want to get Melo in your lineups. But for tonight, probably more for tournaments. I mean, I'm not opposed to playing Carmelo in cash games, but like I said, he goes from a building block to a type play.
Yeah, small forward's not pretty. I mean, yes, we've got LeBron. Yes, we've got Kevin Durant here. I mean, Durant under 10K, 9-6 against Memphis. Man.
Yeah. It's a tough one. I mean, it's tough. Under 10K, like you said, but there's some blowout risk here. Could have a difficult matchup. I think a lot of people go to the mid-tier here, and there's some decent ones. I think guys like Otto Porter, Jay Crowder are in play. Man, I want to play Aaron Gordon. I mean, if you told me for sure he's going to play like 28 minutes, I'm definitely playing Aaron Gordon in this matchup against. I mean, this is a perfect matchup for a guy like Aaron Gordon, but just don't know where the minutes are going to be, unfortunately.
I think he'll be popular today. I think a lot of people will go there at 4.8 on FanDuel. But still, just to put it in perspective for you folks, I mean, we talk about value. This is the highest salary he's had since November 23rd. So we're starting to pay a premium on him. 28, 38, 24. Salaries come up and but it's still cheap enough where if he produces those numbers, you'll take it. But man, you're right though. This does feel like a place that we could easily roster him in a matchup that's beneficial.
Yep. Another name, if Luol Deng's out, I think Brandon Ingram is a fine play. No. Upside's limited for cash gains. 35
Dude, did
minutes.
You see him last night? Did you see this line last night? Oh my!
He got there though. He got there.
I guess. I mean, I just hate to say guys get there when they score 17 fantasy points.
Yeah, but that's all he needs. But for tournaments, no. Yeah, I mean the upside's so limited. But
sucks. Like, dude sucks. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it's not good. I will eat Draft Cheat's hat if he is an all-star in the next 2 years. Like,
yeah, I don't think so. I don't think it's
going to happen. Like, God, I mean, look at these guys' line. He plays a pile of minutes and does freaking nothing. I don't know. It kind of goes back to there are guys who I fall in love with because I think they're good players. They don't always produce fantasy-wise. Yeah. And then there's guys who I just think suck as basketball players who it's just kind of like just a bias I have as somebody who knows basketball, follows basketball closely. Like, I don't want to ever play Ingram just because I know he's not good. Yeah. Wiggins screwed everybody the other night. Not everybody, but certainly everybody who rostered him. Any reason to go back to that well here today? 6,400 in this matchup against Washington.
Wiggins just got to be one of the tougher guys to project in the NBA. It's just the results can be literally like all over the map. If you told me he was going to score 16 fantasy points tonight, I wouldn't bat an eye. If you told me he was going to get up to 45, I wouldn't bat an eye. If you told me he was going to be at 30, I wouldn't bat an eye. So a super tough guy to project. I mean, he is still pretty popular. I mean, a lot of people play him night in, night out in cash games, but there's a lot of risk around him, a lot of risk.
Yeah, I think I might go there in tournaments because I think his numbers are going to go down ownership-wise. I mean, the usage was right on par, 24%. That's pretty much where he's been most of this season. He just didn't make shots. I mean, 2 for 15. It's just bad shooting. That's really what it boiled down to. The rebounds and assists were what you'd come to expect from him. Just didn't make shots. So I think at 6,400, he falls clearly as a GPP play. I do think that maybe Robert Covington today, if Embiid is out, could be a guy I've really got my eye on in that middle tier because I ran the Court IQ today, and when you take him out of the equation, he gets the biggest jump, and he's even been pretty good the last couple of games with Embiid, 36 and 31. Yeah. Another guy all over the map, but I think that he definitely gets an upgrade if Embiid sits today.
Well, the playing time's been there. I mean, it hasn't been under 28 minutes and looks like 10-ish type games, 10, 11 games. So, yeah, 5-2. If Embiid's out, I would definitely be fine going there.
I think that pretty much covers the position here. Let's get to power forward today, this Friday. And again, looking at the top here, price per point, man, looks like a lot of value. Not much to pay up for here. I mean, I guess Kevin Love is back against Brooklyn. He's actually a guy I might have some interest in out of the three guys. I mean, Love or Porzingis. Let me put straight to you. $400 difference between the two. Looks like they're both going to play coming off injury. And we could even throw Draymond in there because those are the three kind of expensive options for us. What do you think?
It's got to be a pretty interesting combo for tournaments. Just plug in both those guys. Two guys that should be lower owned coming off injury and illness, and a position where a lot of people will likely be paying down, like you said, because the value is definitely towards the bottom. But I think interesting tournament options, both those guys.
Do you like one or the other over the other?
I will take between the two. I would go ahead and probably take Kevin Love.
Part of me says Love. I want to see what that line comes in at. At least that game is on the road, so there's a chance that.
And Brooklyn is surprised. They've surprised some people this season too, in matchups where you're assuming the blowout. I mean, they keep it competitive in weird spots. So
I think they've got one of the best against the spread records in the league the other day. I was looking on one of the sites, and they had the record, and I was like, that can't be their record. Sure enough, it was against the spread. So you're right. They've been playing hard for their coach, but the back end of a back-to-back, does concern me. Then you throw LeBron and Love and Kyrie in the mix. I mean, this again, they're not going to push their guys. Where on the flip side, you think this Knicks and Milwaukee game is going to be close. Knicks, probably chomping at the bit after the loss on the last second shot last game. So it's tight. I don't think it's strong for me, Kevin Love over Porzingis. Yeah. I think it's like 1A and 1B. And then Draymond always gets overlooked. Talked about him the other night in a matchup against Denver, and I believe he triple-doubled that day. And he just so good. I mean, he's just super consistent. It's funny because I talk about guys like Brandon Ingram, who I hate to roster because they suck at basketball in my eyes. And then I watch a guy like Draymond Green. It's like I love to play him. I feel like I can play him every single day because he's such a great overall basketball player. Yeah. He might be a jackass when he kicks guys in the nuts, but honestly, though, the guy plays the game like it's supposed to be played. And it sounds like old farty garbage there, but he does. He plays like I would hope, when I have to start coaching my third graders here, I hope I have a Draymond Green on my team.
Third grader Draymond Green. Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, but I mean, for DFS, he just does a little bit of everything. It's what you want.
Does the matchup really even feel like it matters that much? I mean, admittedly, last game versus Memphis this season wasn't so hot. It was under 20 fantasy points, but that's by far the biggest outlier that he's had all year long. So, again, on the top tier. Let's go middle and low. What do you got for me? Who you like here?
I like Julius Randle a little bit lower than these top guys. I mean, on FanDuel here, he's 7.1K, and like we talked about earlier, the minutes are starting to stabilize for their normal starters, and he's played a crap ton lately, 36, 37, 37, been over value, exceeded value in every one of those games. So right below those guys, I have interest in him in the mid-tier, guys like Gorgui Dieng, Markieff Morris, maybe, I guess. I mean, I'm a Markieff supporter, but it's becoming more difficult by the day. Then you got to monitor the news in Philadelphia. If Embiid's out, guys like Noel, Saric become interesting options.
Yeah, man, come on, Markieff. You can't get 20, dude. You can't get 20 fantasy points. Ersan's still underpriced at 5.8. He's definitely the guy I got my eye on potentially today. And Ibaka in that pace-up game versus Houston, he's not cheap at 6.8, but nobody wants to pay 6.8 for him. So in tournaments, he is in play for me. I fell into the Zach Randolph trap the other day when Michael Green was out.
Same here.
Freaking disaster that was. Don't do that again. All right, let's hit up our center spot. But I played Boogie Cousins a couple nights ago. Thought, how could Boogie Cousins miss against, what was it, Willie Reed, I think?
Yeah.
He missed against Willie Reed. Gets the Clippers here today. I'm in. I'm in on him tonight. Yeah, right. I'm looking historically here. Last two games against him, again, just small sample size here, but 38 and 13 and 7, 26, 15 and 9, 19, 13 and 6. Again, I don't believe that DeAndre Jordan's a good defender, and I think that this is a rebound game for Mr. Cousins a little bit.
Yeah, a guy like DeAndre Jordan has no chance at Cousins. If Cousins is focused in, which I expect him to be tonight in this matchup. It's a nice total, 207. Spreads like 1.5. Just an excellent bounce back spot for Cousins. One of the better spends on the slate here.
Yeah. And again, especially if you want to pay down in other spots, and certainly can do that potentially today. All right. I think we can X out probably Joakim Noah with the price rise and Porzingis potentially coming back today. The guy that the sharp players were all on the other night, I wasn't on him, and I looked back and the final score, I said, man, I guess I'm not that sharp. Greg Monroe, man, he was – he's not starting, but his minutes have certainly gotten a huge uptick lately. And, he was garnered really heavy ownership in the higher dollar 50/50s, and he got it done, But look at the shooting, 7 of 10, 7 of 10, 6 of 13 lately. Do we go back there again? I mean, he's been good for sure. Yeah. Price is up now, 5,500 on FanDuel.
Yeah, you certainly can, and I think he might end up being pretty popular here because how well he's performed lately. He hasn't been under 30 fantasy points in 3 straight games at 5.5K. If he gets 30, that's definitely exceeding value. So I think he'll be popular. It's the same matchup as he had the night before. So in this tier, I think he's a fine play.
Yeah, I'm not going to play him on DraftKings. Jumped him a whole 1,000, which is good for them. They should do that. When a guy is 40% owned, there's something wrong. So let's change it, and they did. He's 5,800 now. He won't be 40% owned, but the one thing I'm looking at, 3 steals, 1 block, a little bit much there, a little bit of an outlier. 10 free throws last game is by far the most that he's had all season long. So, I don't hate him. I guess he's in play, but I don't think he's an anchor. I'd rather pay up a little bit. Montrezl Harrell, you know what I'm really hopeful for today? I'm kind of hoping that Nene gets the day off. He played his ass off last night in that game against Oklahoma City, which I don't usually sit around and watch basketball at night, but I watched that entire game. It was a fun one to watch, and Nene played really well. Harrell, coming off the bench, still got 29 minutes, and kind of still got what we needed for the 4-7. They jumped him to 5K here, but I don't think he's unplayable.
No, I like Harrell. 5K I think is a little bit too cheap, and you look at just all the production that he's had recently, and you throw out the one stinker a couple weeks ago where he had 13 fantasy points. He hasn't been under 20 fantasy points in 7-8 games, and it's 5K. You're looking for 24, 25. I think he's a safe option tonight. And if they go ahead and rule Nene out, or say he's only going to play a few minutes, Harrell's going to be the most popular guy at this position.
Yeah, so keep our eye on that situation. FanDuel, give us a second center or something, or give us a utility spot, because you got the Cat out there against Washington. You've got Marc Gasol against Golden State, which is going to be probably the highest total that Washington's going to be in all season long, or Memphis is going to be in all season long. And even Willie Reed, that was a horrible situation for him that last game against Cousins. He pretty much got in the foul trouble that everybody predicted him to, but now gets a matchup versus the Lakers. And, despite that foul trouble, he got you 14 fantasy points in 23 minutes. I think if he gets 30 minutes, he can get us like 24 fantasy points against the Lakers.
Yeah, and just need the news on Whiteside. Is he ruled out?
Is he traveling? I thought they said he couldn't fly with his.
He tweeted a picture or something of him in. Where are they in Florida now? Are they in Miami?
No, they're still in LA.
Okay, so I don't know. That's a situation to monitor. If he's ruled out, I'd be fine to go back to Willie Reed. I got into the foul trouble, and that's why the performance was so bad. But this is a good game to target too. High total, close spread. So just need the confirmation on Whiteside.
Last last guy to talk about, Vooch. Yes, no, maybe 6,300 on. Or 6,900 on FanDuel. I think he's 6,300 on DraftKings.
Yeah. On FanDuel, I'd probably rather play Gortat at 6.5K. The guy's playing so many minutes. 40 minutes in the last 2 games. He's been over 40 in at least 40 in 4 out of 5 games. So in this price range, I'd rather go Gortat.
All right, boys and girls, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks so much for giving us a listen and a download. Quickly, we tell you about our friends over at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans, great supporter of the show. We got some new sponsors coming next week, too, so get ready for that one. When it comes to big decisions, though, choosing a mortgage lender, it's an important one, so it's time to work with somebody who you can trust and has your best interest in mind. And with Rocket Mortgage, we think you're going to get a transparent online process that gives you the confidence to make an informed decision. So don't waste time searching through old stacks of paperwork. With Rocket Mortgage, you can securely share your financial info to get a mortgage approval in minutes. You can even adjust the rate and length of your loan in real time to make sure you get that mortgage solution that's right for you. Whether you're looking to buy a home, refinance your existing mortgage, you can lift the burden of getting a home loan with Rocket Mortgage. Skip the bank, skip the waiting, and go completely online at quickenloans.com/roto. quickenloans.com/roto, equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states. NMLS ConsumerAccess.org, number 3030. Hoop, thanks so much for jumping in today. Good luck to our boy Big T. Hopefully we've got a little T coming up next week. I'm hoping they name him Skills so he can do some chainsaws. Isn't Skills named the chainsaw? I don't know. I don't know if it's
that works. Yeah, we'll see. It works though.
But good luck to him, and good luck to you in all your fantasy contests. Back next week with another edition of The Fix. Till then, we will see ya.